order. Roll call.
Yes, Sue Beal.
Here.
Jim Schneider's absent. I'm here. Tom Sharp.
Yep.
Jeff Van Sally.
Yes, ma'am.
Kim Sears-Hacker.
Here.
Isaiah Crowe.
Here. I have proof of postage. Can we stand for the pledge of allegiance, please?
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Second. Any more discussion? Sue?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Tom? Yep. Isaiah?
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
I'll vote yes.
Move to approve the meeting minutes of March 31st.
Second. Any discussion? Sue?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Tom?
Yep.
Isaiah?
Yes.
Kim? Yes. I'll vote yes.
Move to approve the payroll and disbursements.
Second.
Any discussion or questions? Sue?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Tom?
Yep.
Isaiah?
Yes.
Kim? Yes. I'll vote yes. Alrighty, reports applicable. Well, I'm gonna give an honor to a board member who's going to be departing us. Was gonna have something wrote up, but I've been really swamped, but,
Good, keep it short, right?
that's right.
Brewers are going.
I'm a Cub fan, sorry.
They could learn something.
Yeah. But I'd like to present this plaque to Sue Beal in honor for her 9 years of service on the school board. Wonderful service, even though we weren't always on the same side of the fence. I do have learned and have a lot of respect for what you have said, what you do. You've always fought for the teachers, you've fought for the students, and made this district better. I mean, you've helped the referendums go through that needed to go through. You've helped with the curriculums, the handbook. You did a wonderful job there, I believe. I've learned a lot, and I'd like to say congratulations and move on forward, I guess.
Okay, thanks.
I'm sorry, the support staff. I'm not forgetting them. I'm learning to get everybody in there.
That's fine.
Don't let them.
Okay, I'll go on to Mark.
I just had one tidbit. I was at a meeting, Dane County Superintendent's meeting last Friday, and one of the things the Dane County Superintendents, the two first consortiums they did were for new teacher mentoring, and Carol does that for us. We're not part of that, but also then the youth apprenticeship. Those are the two things, the first two big collaborative things that Dane County Superintendents came together. And Tom Howe, who taught in Monona Grove for many years, has been running the project, but just, sometimes we have questions about what do schools look like, what our staffs look like. And this is a report from the Phi Data Kaplan, kind of like the New York Times of education. And it's kind of interesting perspective. In 1988, there were 65,000 new teachers. In 2008, 200,000 new teachers. What was the mode or the most frequent type of teacher back in 1988? A 15-year veteran. In 2008, it was the brand new teacher. So as we've talked about changes and what does our staff look like, I just wanted to share that in terms of perspective, and I think we're a lot like a lot of districts right now. Major changes, and our staffing looks like a lot of other districts. So just wanted to share that with everybody.
Committee updates, curriculum committee of tonight.
I would assume on the next agenda, we will be bringing forward recommendations, talking about giving the teachers an early release date to plan for themselves for next year. I think you guys all got it in your emails, the assessment calendar that Jason put together for all the testing that they're going to have to do tomorrow, which is great. We will be recommending to go ahead with the Global Education Certificate for students in the 8th grade. They'll have to sign up for that, I believe. Then we had quite an interesting discussion about year-round school, which the teachers and staff had lots of ideas and thoughts, and I guess we're at the point where Instead of saying go, we're just gonna, we'd like to learn, so. It's a very interesting topic of discussion, to say the least. But one more looking into.
How many are there right now around us, do you know?
Well, Oregon's piloting with one, that's what I'm aware of locally. La Crosse is piloting one. I know in major metropolitan areas where, multiple elementary schools, that's been going on. And the other thing that I would share is that in the day and age of charter schools and everything, conceptually, it's, how do you provide instruction in a different way? This would just be another example.
Alrighty, public input. None? Ready? District business, personnel. We have a motion to accept the resignation of Sue Reimenkamp as cook with thanks for service since 2013.
So moved.
Second?
Alrighty, Sue,
Yes.
Sandy,
Yes.
Tom.
Yep.
Isaiah.
Yes.
Kim.
Yes.
I'll vote yes. Do I have a motion to accept the resignation of Lisa Weber as Executive Assistant Human Resources Specialist with thanks for service from 2008. We're gonna miss you, girl.
That's
You
an
move?
understatement.
Tom moved. We need a
Second.
Any more discussion?
That is, yeah, like Lisa, I think I was part of the hiring process, right, when I had been hired, but then Lisa started working sooner than I, but I think she was first hired. Thank you for all the help with insurance. That was something I really needed help with when I came on board, and really helped me, so thank you.
Just working in this position, you've been wonderful, just helping get things coordinated, and that's great. So,
Thank you.
if anybody else wants to speak up?
Been great. No other way to put it.
You may not go.
Tired to the chain tree, would you?
Austin wants to say no.
Sue.
No.
Sandy.
Yes.
Tom? Only because we need a majority.
Isaiah.
Yeah.
Kim.
Yes.
Reluctantly, yes.
Best of luck in your new position.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, you're going to a good place.
Yes.
Let's see here.
Motion to hire Elizabeth Kepler as 3.75 hour per day cook at the middle high school with an annual starting salary of $12.93.
Second.
In fact, I'll add Amy Kellner at 2.5 into my motion.
Okay, we'll group the two together. Is that a second? Any more discussion?
An hourly rate of $12.95, not $12.93.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we can hire more at 12. Sure, with how compliance would go.
Sue. Sandy.
Yes.
Tom.
Yep.
Isaiah.
Yes.
And Kim.
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. All right, buildings and grounds, discuss some possible action to terminate the roofing contract with JRT Roofing for convenience per the bid document and contract.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Mark, wow.
Well, it's outlined, I know termination for convenience is probably not a common thing. I learned about it in this contract. Basically, I was contacted a week ago by our roofing consultant and ran it past, just research and everything, and there were two parts of the contract that allow us to terminate for cost, terminate for convenience. Terminate for convenience, as summarized in my recommendation, it gives us probably the best option. We would have to pay for any work done, but unfortunately, we've been asking for creating deadlines. First of all, it's hard to create deadlines. We've had, I was informed the second site manager will soon no longer be with this organization, and bottom line is I'm concerning that this would be a mess, and recommending to terminate for convenience.
Any more discussion?
What's next? Well, first the board has to act, and then I will, based on the action of the board, then, engage with our consultant.
So they just want to get the job done.
Correct.
Too much turnover, making a little vacancies.
And representation more, sure.
Yeah, okay.
Sue?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Tom?
Yep.
Isaiah?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes.
I will move approval of the following policy revisions: Director of Curriculum and Instruction, job description, policy 233, and Director of Pupil Services, job description, policy 234.
Second.
All right, got a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none? Sue?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Tom?
Yep.
Isaiah?
Yes.
Kim? And I'll vote yes. All right, facilities use work session with consultant, HSR.
I want to welcome Brad Simonson back as he gets into place. He's here tonight to kind of review the final analysis, talk a little bit more about proper usage, but also engage. I know we gave you a little bit of homework of ask more questions. What are you looking for? How can we answer questions better? Criteria for options, very important right now. We're still about educating ourselves about our buildings. I know all of us have been in them. We think we know what it looks like, but if I look at the bottom, the takeaway that I had from our meeting was what will it cost, the question of what will it cost to operate all three buildings as is, and that's a significant dollar amount, and it's just something we need to plan for is the big thing. It's not insurmountable, but it's something to plan for. And as I go back to my notes here, maybe even talk about an option tonight that Brad is, based on his set of eyes, independent and then also an expert with his team. Brad is an architect, but then he's got a team of engineers that specialize in everything else that goes into running the building. So,
Okay, I commend you, the fastest, most efficient board meeting I've ever seen, I think. You guys are on a mission. And Sue, I agree with you, the Brewers are on, so. Again, I want to cover the booklet again, not in great detail, but certainly review it a little bit if you want to go back and review some things to it. I've added a few pieces to the puzzle also. Kind of in a nutshell again, your buildings are in good shape. I mean, they're well maintained and taken care of. That's one of the main things that you've got going for you. You've got a lot of buildings, a lot of space, and we kind of reviewed that last time. Your HVAC, there's little things all the way down the line of every building. There's little things kind of on that last page, if you recall, in the booklet. We kind of covered a lot of the different deficiencies, if you will, and they're really not that deficient, to be honest with you. But at Black Earth, I think our engineers told me that there's about $800,000 worth of improvements that we could do in these buildings to make them even more efficient. Certainly, you've got new boilers in all the buildings and been doing some upgrading there. But as far as the HVAC, some of the most significant things are changing things to have a little more variable speed so that everything's not running full tilt all the time. Just things can kind of taper down as needed in terms of the motors and all of those things. And then also the control systems in each of the buildings, certainly we would highly recommend you consider that because there's some significant savings when you do that, upgrade the control system, because again, you can manage the systems much more effectively and efficiently and save you significant dollars, 15 to 20% savings when you do that. Your buildings are running, I think, let's see if I remember right, this building was about 56%, how was that put? It was 56%, let me find it here so I'm sure I didn't do it right. Performing at 49% efficiency in terms of industry average, okay? The building in Mazo is like 65% of the industry average, 65% below the industry average, and Black Earth was right around that number too, a little better.
Which tab is that in, Brad?
That's in tab 3. I'm sorry, Black Earth was 49% below industry standard, industry average. Mesa was 65, I think it was. And then this building was 56% below industry average. And again, just so you know that all the buildings are a little bit below the industry average or standard. And how they measure that standard is some of the new buildings, some are older buildings, so there's a kind of an averaging going on there. But it gives you a little feel for where you are with your buildings. Now, another thing that we learned is the operational cost currently for this building right now, you're spending about, on gas for instance, you're spending about 20, let me make sure I get that right too, 23 cents a square foot to heat this building. Mesa was about 44 cents a square foot to heat that building, and then Black Earth is about 52 cents to heat the building. Now, again, a lot of that has to do with not only the efficiency of the system, the variable speed things that we talked about, and the control system, but also the building envelope could have some improvements too in all the cases, specifically the elementary schools. Let's see, what else? Any more thoughts here on reviewing this booklet, or do you have any other questions or specific things that you'd like us to address? I figured you'd have something to say.
When you talk about us being below the industry standard, are you talking about utilities?
I'm talking about the efficiency of the building, the operations of the building in terms of the mechanical system.
Okay, so.
Okay, just the mechanical system.
So does it just include HVAC or?
HVAC only, not the electrical. And again, it's nothing to get alarmed about by any means, because, they're just, when it gets to that engineering piece, there's a lot of, it's 56% or 65%, not a huge difference there, but it's just, the point is, I think we could improve the systems a little bit to get up to that average or even greater than the average by doing some of the things that we're talking about doing with the controls and those things, okay? That's the only point that really you need to take out of that.
From the mechanicals, the way I'm understanding, we could hit the big systems, getting them efficient. You're saying we need to get more controls.
Better controls, more updated digital controls, basically, is what we're saying.
Kind of like going from a switch to a dimmer.
Yeah, there you go. Yep.
Change it.
And what we did when we did the big ones here, we decided the decision, we did the big ones, and then as the end units failed, that was our goal, but then we need to revisit that and say, here's where we are now, here are opportunities, how do we prioritize?
You're doing it right, you're prioritizing correctly, you're going through the right steps. And so that's a good thing that you're doing. Okay? The other thing we want to talk a little bit about is trying to get the most out of your buildings in terms of efficiency, not only with systems, but also space. Making sure that you're using the space wisely, as best as possible. And so I guess I wanted tonight to have kind of almost a brainstorming session about how we might be able to think of things in a little different way than you're used to be able to gain that efficiency that you'd like to try to achieve, I think. And again, I'm looking for some feedback from you. If you have some thoughts already, we're all ears. But one of the things that we considered, of course, remember in our initial study, we looked at the square feet per student, and we discovered that the two least efficient buildings were this one and Mazo. This building is 400, we've got, in terms of usable space, in terms of the spaces that are usable, this room is one of them, compared to the number of students you have in the building, we've got 421 square feet per student in this building. And then At Mazel Elementary, we've got 415 square feet per student, and then at Black Earth, we've got 277 square feet per student. And remember the ranges we talked about, the typical ranges that we see are for an elementary school anywhere from 150 to 200. Middle school usually gets a little larger. That range is anywhere from 200 to 250 square feet per student. And then a high school usually is anywhere from 250 to maybe even 350. A little bigger range for high schools because there's more variables in play. Things like a swimming pool or an auditorium, those kinds of things come into play. And that changes that range, makes that range bigger. So, in a nutshell, we think that there's some space in this building that certainly isn't utilized to its utmost, okay? And we examined the idea of what would happen if we, it's a challenge, hopefully you can see this. Turn it a bit. Okay, you good? We've got a couple different variable ideas. These are just ideas on what would it take to create I'm going to call it a 312 building, okay? And I'm thinking, if you could put everybody under one roof, grades 3 through 12, would we have enough room in this building? And again, we may want to look at another building, Mazel somehow, do some different creative thinking. But right now, I think, and when we do that, when we start to think about grades 3 through 12 under one roof, we want to make sure that the school is going to work really well in terms of just the relationships and the circulation, the traffic flow within that school building. And I think a lot of times, it's amazing really, because you see a lot of schools throughout the state, and over time they get added to and changed, tweaked, and a lot of times, unfortunately, folks don't think about the big picture real well on how kids are actually interacting in that school building and how they're working together. So I think before we think much about filling in spaces in this building, I'd want to think big picture about, okay, what would it take, what would we want to do to this building if you were going to put more kids in here, or put grades 3 through 5 in here, or whatever the case might be. And the thing that I see this building really needs is kind of a hub space, something that's going to be kind of the central focal point of the building. And if you think about the building right now, where is that space? I mean, you might say the cafeteria, but it's kind of hard to find. You might say maybe this space out here, but this is kind of like no man's land out here right now. It's just a lobby and entryway. So we're really looking to find that space. And one of the things that I was observing on this building is that maybe there's an opportunity to solve several issues with this building. One would be the main entry. Where is the main entry? When you're a visitor, like I was the first time I came down, which door do I go in here? I was able to figure it out. Took me a couple tries, but so one of the things we might want to do is try to find a way to make this main entry really the main entry and make it very visible so that people know where to go, okay? So maybe there's a way to do that. And I'm not sure how, but here I'm just suggesting we maybe pull it out a little bit so people can see it as they come into the site. Might be something fairly simple. The other thing in the building, once you get in the building, where is this hub? Where is the center of this school? And then you get into all the other things like the kitchen, how deliveries work in the kitchen. You get into things like just the traffic flow between grade levels, those kinds of things. So one of the things I was considering was to move the kitchen, okay? If we wanted to move a kitchen, maybe this room might be a good spot. And then thinking that, well, the office, perhaps that should be out here, so it's right by the front door. Maybe this space could be remodeled fairly simply to become your cafeteria commons that becomes really the hub of that school building. And then from that, we've got the opportunity to have accessibility to the gym, very easy. You come into this big space here, here's the gym, you got serving along here, so this is where the kids eat, this is the commons, the lobby, everything's right there. And then the existing cafeteria, I was imagining, what kind of space does this really want to be? If we're bringing more kids over here, probably need another gymnasium to make those active opportunities for the kids. But then also, maybe there's an opportunity because you've got the stage in there to enhance that space to become more of an auditorium, or in a sense, kind of a multi-purpose space, and we've kind of coined the phrase gymatorium, where it can be a flexible space that becomes a performance area, an area for large groups to meet in kind of a lecture setting like this, or certainly could transform that space into a gymnasium or a PE type space. So that's when we were thinking about that space. So now we've got our hub, if you will, defined, where we've got office, entry, visible, cafeteria, commons, very easy to get to and supervise. Kitchen, that's going to be a workable kitchen. You know, it's amazing your cooks can get all that stuff done in that kitchen they have. And then accessibility to the gym and perhaps the auditorium as well, and gymnasium over there. Plus, we still have pretty decent accessibility to this gym. So a simple kind of transformation like this to a building can really make it work and come alive all of a sudden. And then we've got that hub, if you will, or cornerstone of the building. Now, all these other light yellow, this is dark yellow, meaning potentially new space, okay? All this light yellow space is either space that's just simply changed or reassigned in terms of what it's used for now, or perhaps it's not used, so now we're making a use for it. And then, or some remodeling. In some cases, fairly significant remodeling. For instance, if we move the kitchen over here, it would be significant remodeling. And again, I think part of that space, that transformation, trying to look at that existing cafeteria, what other uses does it have? I mean, I know you do performances in there. Is it great for that? You know, it probably works pretty well, but maybe there's some simple things we can do to make it much better. Just elevate that opportunity so much greater for those kids and the people and all of you that come and watch those kinds of things. Now back over here, these spaces are not used right now, so certainly they can become classrooms very easily. Same thing, these are somewhat underutilized, and I think there's opportunities there. And these are big rooms, large spaces there. So again, what and how they become is something to be talked about yet. And now, of course, these spaces are used, many of these classrooms are used, some of them aren't right now. This is, for instance, AD storage right now. They have a classroom. So, you know, again, just trying to think a little bit out of the box on how to utilize the space in a better kind of a format. We've also taken a look at, jump into if you have any questions or thoughts, a slightly different twist on the same building. And again, it just revolves around this space. If we wanted to just dedicate that space as an auditorium, we probably want to raise this roof a little bit, just to get a little higher volume there. Probably want to do that if it's a multi-purpose space as well, just so you know. But maybe there's enough desire and need and to make it just dedicated auditorium, because we're going to kind of lose this one if we do move the kitchen over here. So maybe there's a desire to just dedicate that to an auditorium. If that's the case, we may want to think about maybe a new gym if you've got grades 3 through 5 in this building, for instance. But, you know, if you do these things, you know, all of a sudden you've used up the space. There's no doubt about it. You're gonna have all the spaces filled. That's efficient. So that's a good thing, I think. But then you've also got the opportunity to, if you don't do this gym, for instance, if you go back to this plan, you certainly have the opportunity to add a gym out here if you ever need that. I'm always thinking about the future, because you never know what 20 years brings. So we don't want to design ourselves in a corner, okay? So we got that opportunity. We've got the opportunity to add classrooms here. We could go out this way. So there's flexibility there if you ever need to, and hope that would be the case someday.
So if we wanted to close down both elementaries and get all the students out here, what would be the best design?
Yeah, well, again, I think it would be a spin-off from this. We need to look at adding more classrooms, no doubt. We certainly want to do this then, that core area. Some of those core areas we need to upgrade. The cafeteria, get another multi-purpose room or auditorium, maybe add a gym out here, get that cafeteria, so this would be big enough for those kids, I think. You might take 3 lunch periods versus 2, those kinds of things have to be looked at. But the kitchen would be adequate here. Again, building those core areas for the future. Our libraries are fine. So it's, in a sense, just taking off this plan, spinning off from this plan, but just adding a few more classrooms in some key areas.
Because what I'm seeing right now with either one of these designs is you're talking at least $500,000 to raise the roof. Probably closer to $1 million to actually make that into a realistic gym. You're looking at probably rough ballpark $100,000 to $200,000 to move the kitchen. You're talking $50,000 to $100,000 to move the office from one spot to the other. I mean, you're looking at $1 million to $1.5 million, maybe even $2 million, just to close one school and not save that kind of money at one location.
Yeah. There's no question about it. Your operational costs, you save on that, of course, without having it at school, but it's not going to be to that extent. But the things that are, some of the intangibles that you'd be saving are the ability to have everybody closer proximity, some of that grade level sharing, learning, collaboration, that could go on easier, where 3rd graders are learning from 6th graders or 10th graders. Some of that is real, and it's hard to put a value on some of that, so your point is well taken, Tom. I mean, this will cost money, whatever it is. I haven't done any estimating yet, and I can do that if you want me to do that. But what do you compare that to? That's the next thing, and we can figure that out too. And I didn't want to go too far and be presumptuous, and I'm just thinking here now.
Well, I think if we're thinking out loud, we're
Yeah.
trying to find the most efficiencies and still provide a good education, so.
Well, that's the ultimate goal, is to provide the best education.
Right.
And every district has its way to get there. It's finding out how you want to get there. That's what we need to do. So Sue, go ahead, hand up.
When you talk about this, one of the concerns in the district is keeping the younger kids separate from the high school kids. Do you have, is there anything on there that shows the separation between the 3 through 5 and the...
We haven't shown that yet, but we need to do that, okay? We need to do that for sure. One obvious thing is this certainly can be a wing on its own, where it's intermediate or middle elementary and upper elementary perhaps on this side, and then junior high and high school and junior high. Those kinds of things can easily be done in this building, and it works really well this way with this and this. That's almost a no-brainer to be able to separate those kids that way and letting this area be that kind of demising line, if you will. But certainly, it's going to be a function of, down here we've got some pretty intense science rooms, but, one could argue maybe they need some upgrading too. So yeah, you need to address the division, how that works as a whole. And then I also understand how we can use that as a benefit to the educational process as well.
Well, how do you do a division if you have this central hub, and that's where everybody comes in and everybody exits?
Again, keep in mind, we've designed a lot of K-12 school buildings, okay? Where, for instance, in Flannel School District up by Ladysmith, we had a K-12 school, 800 kids. And it was, similar to this. We got central things that we want to share, and that's the positive of doing something like this. There's sharing going on. but at the same time, we need to be able to separate kids at certain times, so it's a lot of scheduling, certainly. There's, you know, we don't want high school kids and third graders having lunch at the same time, for instance, or gym class, you know, and how this gym gets used versus this gym gets used versus this space perhaps. Those are all scheduling, but the main point is we're creating a design and a plan that gives you the flexibility to do those things. And again, it might change from year to year on how the buildings gets used, but the idea is that it's a dynamic building that can be tweaked and massaged and modified from year to year, and it's still going to work for you very, very well. So your point is a very good one, Sue. We also talked, I have a little plan, site plan here. I've got handouts of all this stuff too, by the way, so you can take a look at handles up. Yeah. And again, just so I did this primarily for myself, so I can understand the site and all the issues of the site with the traffic flow and visually identifying the main entrance to the building. Now, we know that there's going to be some significant changes out here. We're going to eliminate a road that comes out. We're going to have one access point, in and out. We're going to have turn lanes here, blow-by lanes, all kinds of stuff going on here. And we've done this in many school districts too, work with the state of Wisconsin on highways, just like this. So all these things that you're talking about already with the state are very good things to do. The other things that I'd like to try to do within the site is clean up and make it a little more efficient. Right now, there's a roundabout way around here. That's big. It's way bigger than it needs to be. And especially if we look at doing something out here in terms of maybe a small addition, we can make this a little smaller. We've got some, the bottom line is, we've got some space out here we can use for building if we need to. So again, and definitely we like the idea of separating car drop-off from bus drop-off. And we see that the cars certainly work well up here. There'll be some traffic things that we'll have to deal with here, but then the buses coming in here, dropping kids off and then scooting out that way. Getting that traffic so it gets out quickly. And again, whether this stuff works or not, or you've already thought about it, I don't know. But these are just some of the things that I'm thinking of. Certainly we've got the potential for additional parking if we need to. I don't know yet if there's a need for that. But we've got the ability to do that. Making this, I think, more efficient. There's a lot of wasted space in here where it's just traffic, driveways and stuff that are just kind of driving around, you know. So I think if we clean that up a little bit, tighten it up a little bit, I think that would make it more efficient and effective and safer for everybody. So just some points to mention on the site. We've got the ability here to expand this way or this way, especially if we move that driveway a little bit, or even outward. I know there's some discus and shot put areas out here, but we've got the ability to do some tweaking there, I think. So, I know there's a lot to think about, and we've done this just to kind of get you guys thinking as well and reacting to some things that we shared with you.
You're thinking 3 through 12 with this concept here.
That's the base model.
That's the base model. Yep, that's a good way to put that, Mark. It's a starting point. Yep.
You know, you're a long ways from it, but getting third graders, short little third graders.
Short ones, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
You'll be,
that's part of it, I suppose.
yeah, right.
For example, and I don't want to get too far here, but I'll just say younger grades. If you look at this, or actually, Brett, this will do better.
Okay.
With younger grades, and you know, this is a little different, but you've also got right here, this could be, you know, whatever the youngest grade is, that could be the entrance point. And you know, just conceptually look at I think you got to ask those questions, but you've also got to say what are your non-negotiables, and that's using this as a starting point, plus minus, you know, start over. But this these two concepts, and I saw them for the first time today, and,
Yep.
it's just like grade level classrooms. Well, right now, we're more or less a 3-section district, so for every grade we add, we have to add 3 classrooms. And then, there's some acknowledgement because we have more students, or again, because people want groups separated, having, how do you create that third gym space so that becomes, for a gym for that group, just based on numbers, but also guiding students so that when mom and dad drop off their children, they know that, hey, this is where they're gonna be. We know that at this time of day, it's good. Because, those younger groups will function, like elementary students, where, there's no, that'd be a question we want to talk about, but the default right is, they're elementary students, they function as. And that's where, I think, as Brad mentioned, with his building or redesigning K-12 buildings, those are the questions, or those are things, as a board, you're gonna want to research. Because how does this look like? Well, then, that means going and seeing what do buildings look like this? We've got Dodgeland over in Juneau that is a K-12 campus, 1,000 students, pretty comparable. And they'll tell and they went from, how should I put it? Their one school was like as if the elementary school was in the town of Barry or the town of Roxbury. They had a larger distance as opposed to, what we're talking about. But, they could share with those dynamics, and actually the parent that led that whole process is now their superintendent.
I see you don't have the courtyard yet. What would you do with that?
Well, it's still outdoor space right now. Certainly, you could consider, we talked about this when we walked through, you could roof it and you create indoor, inside, usable space fairly easily. We'd have to pay attention to the windows. We're losing windows in several classrooms. And of course, we always like to get windows in these classrooms as much as possible, but there's ways to do this.
If I can add, with a roofing project, that instead of, those are, and I don't have all the documents in front of me, but part of the roofing project, which is roof 14, that's where we're redoing the drainage there. So the purpose of the courtyard, although it's been a conversation for a long time, the number one reason for that courtyard was drainage.
Yeah.
And not that we can't use it for other things, it's that the other, please don't take that from me.
Right.
But now that we have a drainage system for the courtyard, or for the classrooms around the courtyard, now we have other options. But if we wouldn't have done that, if we weren't addressing roof 14, there are fewer options, there are,
That was the purpose of Route 14.
correct, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so if we do an entrance at the end of the middle school for the younger students, now how does that work with all this new security that we just put in? All of a sudden, we've got 3 entrances now instead of just 1.
Well, those are questions, but remember when we're coming to school, this would be the difference, and it's a fair question, but when students come in, the doors are open. So the entrance for coming into school would be different than the main entrance. So after 8 o'clock, you would still, that locks down and you go in.
Everybody goes.
And we currently have, I could be wrong, I'm not sure. I don't think we have, I can't remember if we have a keyless entry or not. I don't think so, but, that's 1,500. That's doable. That's the smaller end of the spectrum, but you're right. We've got to have that option if that becomes a secondary.
The thing too that we try to do, or we recommend you try to do, if you do anything to a building, is really make, whatever we can do, make that circulation system within the building easier and simpler. Like right now, for instance, we come in here and we walk around this little cubbyhole to get to the gym. What we're thinking is this concessions area moves over here somewhere. So that perhaps we've got one big space, you come in, and there's no nooks and crannies. You can see everything. There's no little hiding spots, no And then the rest of the circulation is fairly simple, because right now, you know, you kind of get lost back in here, because it's kind of like a little, gets to be a little maze-like almost. But as soon as you do this, we've got this block of space, all this, and everything revolves fairly simply around those areas, which cleans up a lot of circulation and supervision capability, it enhances that supervision capability tremendously.
There's a question right here.
Sure.
I just have a question. Say if you go to one school like this, and then 20 years down the road, you grow out of it.
Yeah.
And then you need to expand. Where are the setbacks for zoning wise, on the lay of the land? Like, by Olson Road, how far away from there do we have to,
That's a
then
good
you're
question.
talking, you know, how much room do you
You'd run
need
out
to
of
expand?
space.
Might have to go.
What's that?
You'd run out of space.
Well,
If we-
right,
If we did any kind of addition to this, at some point, you would run out of space.
Yeah. Now, we've got about 42 acres roughly, okay? And again, a lot of it's taken up with the athletic stuff, of course. You know, again, depending on how significant the addition might be, we do have some space. You know, we've got a little space around here,
Don't forget about the playground.
and then the playground, yep. I need to do a little more investigation down here to see how that's utilized, but
Where's the Wolfront Trail?
Well, that's right here. Wolfront Trail
Okay, good.
comes here, stays tight. And there's the railroad easement, which, if you got
yep, here we go.
railroad easement, right here.
Right there.
And then we gotta come this way and around, so.
Because that's railroad.
Yeah, this is railroad right here.
Railroad and sewer.
Yeah. You know, the area that's tough is, this is where the drain field is,
Right.
right here. So that kind of X's out a little bit. And then, so we're like that. But those are the, yeah.
So we don't have unlimited space, there's no doubt about it. And, you know, we have to consider that, and hopefully that becomes an issue and a problem. Because if we need more space, that's a good thing, right?
I mean, you never know, if that, in Maysville, if that ever goes through down, you know, haven't they been talking about that for,
What's that?
like, off of Hudson Road in that area,
Oh,
about
for the industrial park?
development and that?
Yeah. I mean, it's.
It's, you never know.
There's opportunity.
I'm not gonna have to, I really.
Yeah. Right now Maysville's got about 200 lots plotted right now. So, I mean, it's a good question, right?
Right, and the industrial park is finally taking on, yes.
I know where I live, up by Galesville, we're getting sand mines, a lot of sand mines, okay? And they're kind of all around our farm right now, so, and that's generating families coming in, moving in. So you never know, something like that can happen just on the blink of an eye, and all of a sudden, things change, you know? So it's a good point.
Yeah. Yeah, you could always go up too on the building.
We can, yeah, we can go up.
More
You know,
expensive, but it's.
Some of these things probably aren't structured right now to go up.
Right.
It's a matter of footing capacity and perhaps roof capacity too, but you can always do things like that.
Yeah, the other underutilized area, and then granted, this slopes
Yeah.
dramatically right here,
Yeah.
but this is our other underutilized area
Right.
of the property.
For instance, this softball field.
It's a full JV, it's a JV baseball field.
Sort of. Kind of, sort of.
Yeah.
Remnants.
Maybe that gets moved, to
Right.
be pushed, you know,
Eliminated.
eliminated. You said it, I didn't.
There's room to work back.
Improved,
There's
yeah.
room to work back there.
There's room, yeah.
Yeah, you can always move the ditch,
Yeah,
the drainage ditch.
right.
That's,
We do that
that's
stuff.
a little engineering and cat work.
Mhm.
You got more ground closer to the buildings.
Yeah. Here's another thing to think about, and again, I'm thinking long-term, down the road. We're doing more and more turf fields now, football, turf, soccer, combination fields, that where people, districts, when they do that, they can eliminate some other fields, because now all of a sudden, you've got a turf field that you can play on constantly, rain or shine. And you don't need some of these other things, perhaps, okay? You get more use on it that way. So, something like that even can change the dynamics of.
How to create a higher degree of utilization.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we're all about here, not only with the buildings, but with the sites as well.
When I get the lottery, I'll give the school $10 million to do that too,
Yeah.
To do the,
to do the field.
Yeah.
Those are just $1 million.
Oh,
yeah. it's-
So what I'm saying is you don't have to hit the big one.
nice.
Yeah,
There's just 350 in Marshall, you just gotta do that 3 times. You're good.
yeah. We're
There you
just-
go.
We just did one, total redo, and it was 800,000. The turf itself is like $500,000. Okay?
That's food for thought there.
Okay.
Well, what I'd like to see, it's gonna come as no surprise to anybody in this room, but I'm not in support of closing down either elementary until we can get every student out at one facility.
Okay.
So what I'd be more curious to see is
Okay.
your plan if we were to bring everybody out to one facility. What it would look like. We'd be losing 2 gyms,
Right.
so we'd have to replace one for sure. I think one is probably underutilized right now out of the 2. So we'd have to replace it with one,
Mhm.
add the classrooms, add the capabilities, add the cafeteria. That's what I'd be more interested to see.
Okay, I can do that.
I like, that, and then I still think we have to look at the step-up option of one down, one school closed, and how we would organize that.
Yeah. You just saw it.
That may be, what are you gonna,
That you just saw it.
Yeah,
yeah.
we can enhance it, we can.
But
update it,
which,
and
right,
but the 2 point together will create some great discussion amongst all
Right.
of us.
Oh, yes, it will.
he'll guarantee it.
I guarantee
And we're looking at more or less 11 classrooms plus a couple, what I would call auxiliary services.
Right.
Right.
And there we will want to look at the library space as well, to make sure we got the capabilities there. Those are the core areas I'm talking about. The kitchen, the way we've got it laid out here, I'm fairly confident we'll be able to handle those kids as well here. But some of these other spaces will be band, music, some of those areas we'll check out.
That kitchen over there can't be smaller than this area.
That's a tiny one there, yeah, over library.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you're not-
I'm
no,
talking-
you're not.
I'm talking
Not
here. I'm talking this one.
This area would be quite a bit bigger. You can kind of see it there.
Yeah, it's probably twice as much.
Because there's some rooms back in here that.
Yeah, they're talking about what we don't see.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, okay.
And then the storage, at
Okay.
least what I'm hearing, you're coming out a little bit on the serving, so the serving is outside this room.
Yeah.
So that also,
Yeah, he just
So you're
circled,
not just talking these 3 walls
No.
here.
he just circled the old kitchen right
Here's
now.
the
That was
kitchen.
Kirk.
And then there's some storage in here too.
yeah.
We'll test that, though. That's a good one, Tom. We'll double check it and make sure. So we'll look at that. We'll look at the K-12 concept as well.
How many semi-deliveries a day or a week does the school get in?
Semis?
Like food delivery,
Cisco, between the 2 vendors, maybe 3 drop-offs, about 3, about 1 by 1 and 2 by another. So that would be the regular ones, and we could still spin. They come to the back as is now. I'd say 3 regular ones would be, and then,
just make sure they got adequate,
Yeah.
absolutely.
because it's a
Yeah,
pain swinging tractor
Yeah.
trailer in a tight,
Tight space, it's tough.
yeah, they put all these roundabouts in, you ever drove tractor trailers around there?
Well, they're a joy.
yeah,
They're a real joy.
yeah. Yeah, we just make Jeff drive his semi, see if it works.
There you go.
But yes, absolutely.
When you're talking about libraries,
Mhm.
will we have libraries
That's a
10
great-
years from now?
Yeah,
I mean,
good question.
Yeah.
I would assume for younger children, yes, just
Yeah, there are gonna be books, there's gonna be books, especially for the young kids, there's no doubt. There's more and more online, of course. The libraries are, the dynamics of the library is changing because of the technology, but there's still a space need, you know. A lot of people say, well, we don't need as much space, but by the time you start adding in the technology and replacing it with the books with technology, it's about a horse apiece that way. In terms of
Space-wise,
space.
space.
Yeah.
But even this common space, you know, what does that fit?
Right.
Or if we've got Wi-Fi, I mean, and granted, we're talking years out.
Yeah.
You know, is this space, instead of solely using cafeterias for eating, or that commons area, then that also opens up, we're just using that part of the building
Right.
and incrementally more.
Yeah.
So that's, but, yeah,
And how we develop that cafeteria, this is where you're going,
Yep.
is more learning kiosks there as well, in that space. I know my daughter, for some reason, she thinks she's gotta go to Barnes and Noble or Starbucks or something to study all the time. Okay, oh, okay, yeah, right, Anna. But that's the way she learns, and that's the way they're doing it now, so. And creating a space like that out here, you know, changes that whole
Using
thing.
it more than just to feed somebody
Yeah,
once a day.
exactly, exactly. Yeah.
but being usable at the same time, I think we probably all had study halls and cafeterias. And
Yeah,
those-
and it's a place to
Sometimes
go.
it works, sometimes it could be better.
Yeah. It's a place to go to plug in your computer too during the day when you got a break or something. More like a college campus atmosphere almost. That's where schools are kind of getting towards. A little bit more of an atmosphere like that. And then to top it off, then we got the little kids, whether it's K-2 or 3 through 5, that we got to integrate into all of this too. And it's a dynamic thing that we're doing more and more of. We've got a lot of K-12 buildings, and they really become learning environments that are dynamic and exciting. Okay? So I'll work on the K-12 and come back and report. Maybe we can do it next time we come. Maybe it can be a Brewer Cup game. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions?
If anybody's got questions, direct them to Mark so we can give them to Brad.
Yeah.
If we got more questions. 'Cause,
I really look forward to the questions, so.
This
or
is
ideas.
a long-term project, and everything is up for discussion on it, it really should be.
That's right.
There's a lot of stuff in there.
I would definitely like to see our science, high school science rooms upgraded, because they're,
Yeah.
Larger, even bigger. I've heard those have overflowing.
That's a good point, and I'll address that next time. I just thought of it as I was talking. I should add it on there probably as a key point. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else have more questions? Thank you, Brad.
Thank you.
All righty. Let's move on to discuss possible action on 2014 employee manual. There should be a grid or chart there that we've, I believe, got everybody in there. Well, you're gonna put it up on the screen.
I figured that might be helpful.
Do you want us out there?
It's
So,
up to you. Okay. Prosecutors here. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you.
I think we compiled everybody's suggestions and comments and stuff. I'm thinking Mark got everything all put together with his comments. So hopefully we can come to consensus or whatever. Technology works.
Just hit it again. It'll come back to the computer when it's working. I just plugged it in.
smart board in here.
Here we go.
Actually, that's not a bad idea. What's that?
So in the memo, what,
I'd like to have one.
what I put in the memo is really, I think, first and foremost, or let me look at the memo so I don't misquote anything, but really tonight's about discussing and clarifying if people feel good about things moving forward, but it doesn't have to, it's not an all or nothing thing. People have more questions and concerns, you know, we can go forward on what we agree on, and then if we need more information, we'll go from there and we'll mark it accordingly, so. So I'll just, do you want me just to go down?
Yeah.
Okay, so page 15, mission and vision. Yes, it needs to be in there. We haven't addressed, it does need to be approved by the board. And we need to get to priorities. That's the one part of the mission and vision. We're missing the priorities component, and that should be put in. So otherwise, I think everybody feels pretty good about mission and vision. It's just priorities. So one more thing for policy. Page 8, the question was, you know, just some clarification. Yes, you know, inappropriately means, you know, taking the stuff home without permission. It's not about, you know, at times we've said, okay, you know, it's time to clean, you know, there's no reason to stockpile things we haven't used for 20 years or whatever that time frame is, but this is more for, you know, you just can't do stuff, you know, or take, if you'd like it and the district's not using it, you can't take it home. 40, revision on this, just to reflect what we're currently doing, pre-approved through the Human Resources Department. So we just continue to do that. Page 56, conversion, this has remained silent. In the CBAs, we had it in there. It would just remain silent. So there's a decision on how to do that. That also, the other thing that remains silent in the manual compared to the CBA is accumulation. There's a couple options here. Right now, we have 8 people that are over 120 sick days. We could just grandfather people. If they haven't hit 120, then they're capped at 120, but if you've gone over 120, if you've accumulated over 120, give people credit for what it is, and then we'll just phase that out. I guess I'm not trying to rush through here. If there are no, I'll just pause. If there's no questions, move forward. Bereavement funeral leave, there is a request to go from 3 to 5. Our district has been currently has a very favorable policy. It does not come out of your sick leave. Other districts it does, or it's a doc. People can always ask for more, but I recommend keeping it at 3. That's pretty high.
Isn't that kind of standard?
Pretty standard, yeah. I mean, it's at the top end. I mean, there's, again, I have places that automatically come out of your sick leave and we do not pull right now.
I know the discussion had, a few teachers had brought up, okay, so their parents live in the west. Their parents live farther, so it takes me, like, we had one staff member who had to travel a full day there just to, you know, and they just ended up having to take unpaid time. So that was, I think, where that comes from, is for teachers who have family members who live far away, so they burn up their bereavement time by traveling.
Don't they have personal time they can use as well?
Yeah, but
I'm asking, I don't know.
they do have, I think, 3 days. Everybody has 3 days.
Teachers do, support staff has 5. Yep. I mean, we've just rolled everything forward from what the CBA was.
But I guess the question is, what if you're out? What if it was unexpected? What if, you know, that's just not an option for you?
And I know some people said you can always ask for more. I think that's part of it. That, you know, the question for the district or us is, do we want to determine how far enough, what equals 1 day of travel, what equals 2? I mean, do we want to get into that? That'd be the question. But like Tom said, personal days are an option.
To me, I don't know anybody, any company, anybody that does more than 3 days of paid bereavement time. The rest of the time, you have to use vacation or personal time or whatever term you want
Or
to use.
sick day or whatever you need to use.
Or they lump it into all PTO. Yeah, because like, we don't even get bereavement.
You just have straight PTO.
Straight PTO category.
Yeah, and that's what, we don't have that concept. Some of our staff earn vacation time, which is probably similar to what.
Yeah, we earn so many hours a month.
Correct. Child rearing leave, and this was trying to quantify it. I know there's some, and this was straight WSB language. I'm not trying to stick. Oh, sorry.
63, 64.
Sorry. I apologize. Currently, we're at half day, or, there are 2 comments, and I can go down to see attached. Currently, this year, and it was a slight change. Last year, we were doing hourly, or for a while, we were having a hard time getting subs, so we went to half day, full day. There are about 10, how should I put it, 10 examples in comment 2 in terms of how people are impacted. Again, if we approve, and my recommendation is go to create a 2-hour increment. But then the challenge is, how do we get subbing? It's still my recommendation that we have half-day subs, full-day subs, and we just can't, for somebody, and I know we have staff that sub in, but I also don't want to do built-in, okay, if someone's gone for an hour, then it's somebody else, because, going back to the old teaching days, if you had a prep or a duty first or the last hour of the day, you were losing some of your prep time, so keep that in mind. I can support, and other people may not, but, we just have to make a cognizant decision. If we go down to 2-hour increments, we understand that we're paying a sub a half day. Now, we can ask them to do things, that a little pressure on the building principals. I know they'll step up and ask for things to be done, but just keeping that in mind too. Or they do internal subbing, but again, that's a balance.
That's kind of what I worry about, is the balance there, because you're taking, I know in the climate and culture committee meetings, there's a lot of talk with, we need more time to prep and stuff like that. And here we're going to be pulling from somebody prepping for a class to sub. That's one of my biggest concerns of it. Sue?
Well, my concern with the internal subbing is, do the employees that are taking that time off have to use their sick leave or personal leave? Or is it just a wash because we have somebody internally subbing?
They use time. They take time.
And what we do is, in my district, is when you take time off internally and somebody subs for you, you can just get reimbursable time, so money never changes hands, just time.
Yeah, we don't have reimbursable time.
Right, but that's so they
Yeah.
add your sick, or your, whatever time your PTO, now it's what it would add to. So it's kind of a benefit in certain ways where you don't actually have to, have it paying out as fiscal thing at the moment.
There is a cost though.
There's a cost in the long run, I mean, like, it's capped at 120 days, if you do 120 days, single day subbing or single hour subbing, that's a long time.
Yeah, it's just not cost neutral. Yep, it's an option.
Although I will say, from my experience of going, even if these people have to take half days, it is harder still because we do not get half-day subs. Very rarely, it's still very hard. So now, we end up internal subbing anyway. So now, instead of that 1 hour of internal subbing, we're actually finding 5 hours internal subbing. Every year, I tend to take a number of, for example, music classes, because I was a music teacher. I would say, on any given year prior to this, maybe 6 to 8 times for the year, I would sub just because we couldn't find somebody. This year, easy, hands down, I've probably been in there close to 20 already because now they've had to take a half a day, and I've had to go and sub in when they only needed that one class, and because we can't find there's no half-day subs. So,
This time frame on the 10, the examples that were given, a recent staff request, what's the time frame of that? 1 month, 2 months, 1 week?
oh, the ones that I wrote down?
Yeah,
Those were from the beginning of the year.
from the beginning of the year till now,
Yeah.
or till within the last couple of weeks.
Right, and those are the ones that I knew about, that would come in and say something. Now, there are other people who put in for a half-day personal day and just went, you know, I don't ask them. These are people who said, I only need 1 hour, you know, type of thing. Now, from the other ones who took a half-a-day personal day, whether they just put it in and they didn't need it or did need it, I don't know.
Are there any parameters set for, I come in this week and I need a half an hour tomorrow, or, you know, and next week I need another half an hour then, and the next week it's another hour that, I mean, is there any,
Well,
okay, you
So
gotta,
many times you
yeah.
see,
you
the
know.
thing is, I found, I don't know, Dale, about your building, but I have found that most of the ones that are personal in nature that are an hour, most of them are emergency things that, you know.
Came up out of the blue.
Right, those are the main ones, you know, it's, once in a while, yeah, there is that person who knows, I've approved a few now that I know there's one coming in a week and a half, one's coming next month, you know, they take a day because of some situation. But the ones that are in increments of 1 hour are usually, and my other email from previously at the beginning of the year, those were previous ones to this. And those, they're usually, you know, hey, I had to go deal with something unexpectedly, got a call, or there was one that was, you know, lost their keys. One last year, garage door wouldn't open, you know, and so they were late to school 1 day, 1 hour. So, so now I have to tell them, well, don't come in for a half day when your garage door now opens. You know, it's just, I don't know what to tell them.
Previous to 2008, it only was half and wholes. I know this is created, we try to be flexible in everything, and it's a balancing act of how do we support staff, and how can we manage it, and you know, that's the challenge right now.
I don't have as big an issue with the 2-hour increments. My big thing would be, you know, if we do have to get a sub, we'd have to pay them, I'm assuming we'd have to pay them for a half a day.
Yeah.
So there's
That's
that
what-
cost, where if we could fill it internally without having,
It's just 1 hour.
yep, without having additional costs, that would be wonderful.
But, yeah,
How do you know-
again, it comes back to
Yeah.
prep time and stuff, like I said, that's been the one
Yeah,
big
yeah.
common themes through the common culture is, you know, teachers getting ready for the prep time, now they gotta go sub.
But
You know,
it
and
ends
I
up-
don't- and I
but
don't
it
know how
ends
they
up
schedule
It
this.
ends up being that way for me anyway, because we can't find half-day subs. To me, it's like 85% of the time.
Now, what happened to our ESOP or ASOP? It was
ASOP.
gonna,
There aren't people who,
this guy stood right up and said, now you're gonna help us.
there are very few people who take half-days.
And we're
I
finding
haven't
this
had a problem at the elementary.
This is universal, this isn't
Right,
just
right.
Wisconsinites.
Oh, but no, that's
This is
right.
everybody now,
That's-
subs, you just don't have subs.
Jack,
At my level.
I'm sorry,
I
Dale.
didn't-
At the grade school, it's really hard for us to find this stuff internally because we are just all back to back. You know, if a teacher would have to go a half a day, either moving that class into, you know, split that class up like kindergarten into the other two, there is no wiggle room. I mean, we are just all booked solid, you know, and there isn't anybody to take internally at the grade school, at Black Earth. You're always, don't you say, well.
I haven't had sub as much as asked about it yet, you know,
You don't have a
Why don't
problem
you
with
guys,
that
but they
days.
sub.
but I
Just
sub, yep,
Yeah, I'm sorry, say that again.
but I have
Yeah.
had sub. some days it's all day.
So if we approved the 2-hour time frame, would we want to set up parameters on how that would work? In other words, would we want to say, okay, 2 hours is fine, however, here's the course of action we'd like to take, check with the building principals to see if there's a teacher to cover, or check with the building principals to see if they will cover. If those two things don't work, then check for a sub and make that the last resort.
You have to go the other way, because there's no way you're ever gonna get a sub. I hear what you're saying, Tom, but the only way the chance of getting a sub is to have it posted. Because if Dale gets a call, like, say I'm Dale's 4th grade teacher, the first option, I'm not saying it's viable or that it works, the fastest way to try to do all 3 is to post a sub. If that doesn't work, because what I also don't want to do systematically is to have, you do it this way, which is you go ASOP and do it, I don't want to flip on another one, that's me talking. I'd like to try to keep things parallel, or go in the same direction.
But wouldn't it be the quickest to, they've got to check with the building principal anyways if they're going to be taking time off. Wouldn't it be relatively quick for the principals to say, yeah, we can,
Well,
we
because
can
he's
cover
got to go
it?
talk to 3 teachers, or if Mark Elworthy has a certain time, well, let's say 1 o'clock. If everybody's teaching at 1 o'clock, and I have to leave at 1, it's always, it should sound simple,
Yeah.
but it's not.
Okay.
Depends on the situation.
I mean, it's a good question.
Sometimes they will check, and then when they put it in ASOP, they can check no sub needed, because I know immediately we can cover that internally. Just,
Okay.
and then other times, then it's, yes, check, you need a sub. And then that's where Nancy comes into play, when she monitors ASOP, and she'll contact us and say, we really need a half-day sub, it's for the last 2 hours, whatever it may be, but, and it works.
And I do think that our buildings are a little different, but in the end, to me, the best thing for the kids is, if the teacher only needs an hour, don't make them take 2 or 4 because they could be with the kids. I'd rather deal with the hassle of finding an internal sub or me going in there, because finding a half-day sub and then making the teacher leave, and it's just not best for kids, I don't think. And
We all hear when our kids have a sub that they didn't get anything done.
I just think
We
if you
still-
brought it down to an hour, you're just asking for.
But that's what it's always been, and it's not been a problem. That's what it was been until.
Well, there were more absences.
Well,
The issue
I think the
is
issue
the
is
absences, though.
Is abuse. I mean, that's what the question is. And how do you monitor abuse? And I think that principals, superintendents, how you monitor that piece. I mean, I think that they do, if there was anything going with that, they would probably not approve it. If it's 5 days in a row, I need to get off early, something like that, I'm fairly certain they'd say, what's going on? You can't do that. I mean, that's where it's like, okay, we have to trust that they're going to be able to do it, and it seems like they haven't had trouble so far. Well, I mean, granted, it was 4 hours, or the half a day, but, I mean, if it doesn't work, you come back and you take it away. I mean, there's no hurt in trying.
What happens on a day
True.
that there isn't someone to take a class?
Well, most of the time, when there's only 1 or 2 hours, most of the time, it's either internal or me or Jason.
Okay,
Is that what you
what happens when there isn't someone to take that?
Yeah.
We always find somebody. We always find somebody, or we juggle. There has been rare, but maybe once or twice since I've been here, that we've combined classes. We've taken a whole class into another teacher's classroom.
But I think Mark's point is, to a degree, I mean, you were right, certainly, you have to start with ASAP, they have to put in a 2 hour, unless you can find your own internal coverage for the 1 hour. And then you click, got my own sub,
No sub.
check, no sub needed, they've already taken care of that, that person subs for you for the 1 hour, it still has to get approved. So it's not like you're saying, you just go in there and say, I just need 1 hour off. I mean, you can't just go and do that and say, good luck filling that 1 hour. That's not gonna work. So the 1 hour piece is only if they find their own at that point. Otherwise, it is gonna have to be 2 hours, because you're gonna have to be able to fill that externally somehow. 2 hours typically generates more interest than just a 1 hour time frame.
Well,
which 4 hours is even more so.
yeah.
True,
from-
but they
from
still
the
can't
people I've
find
talked to, it's, yeah.
But they still can't find it, even in our district, I was gonna tell you before, is that they've had to open up, they used to only take certified teachers, they've just opened it back up to non-certified people to do it, because they just can't find the subs,
Yeah.
so, it's a universal issue.
Right.
Is there a full-time float for each building?
No, and now,
Has that ever been?
well, with Affordable Care Act, we have to give them benefits.
Right, but is there always something to do in a building? Not really?
Not every, I would say, that's the $55,000 question. If we're a full-time teacher with family benefits, it's $55,000, and we do not need subs every day. And so if we have a floating sub, that means we have one less teacher.
In a bigger district, it works, in a smaller one, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, no, it's a
Good question.
Good question.
We have one full, 2 and 3 schools.
I mean, so I'm
Even then, we're still not a big enough district to be able to.
I'm for going down to 2 hours, but one, if you can find your own, and if it's organized already and approved. I mean, one,
But in emergency situations, how long do you have to approve it?
2 hours. If it's an emergency, I think, I mean, you have to, what if you're calling in and somebody can cover you?
But typically, that's a sick leave, which you can
Then you go to your sick leave.
Yeah, but you know, the missing keys, the broken garage door, those are just, you know, they're calling me from,
But
it's
that's,
7:45, you know, and
But
there's,
they don't know.
they don't even have,
Garage either at that
you
point.
know,
So you have to
sometimes
put it
in those emergency, and a lot of times,
Yeah.
they put it in after. We just go scramble and find somebody who's get in the classroom.
Those are your exceptions.
Right,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but those are the ones that are, to me, the bigger deal, you know, it's those.
or you try to, I mean, I don't know, I mean, we've talked, what I heard is, and if people aren't ready or they need to think about it, then we'll talk about it next time. But what I've heard is, most people have said 2 hours is okay, there's some people still have question with 1 hour. But everybody says, I'm hearing that we still try to keep the process as similar as possible, so that
Yeah.
people just know what to do. I mean, just don't.
Well, and our 2 hours is the middle of a class, you know. So, because our classes are 45 minutes long, so if you take 2 hours, it's not really 2 classes.
Well, that's proportional though. It's actually 2 hours because they work here 7:30 to 3:30, so it's not per period. It's 2 hours.
Right.
So, I mean, it's just, that's the grade that we operate in. I understand that, but we're not gonna have for each different building.
Correct,
I
correct.
mean,
Just instruction.
it's challenging enough when we have 0.8 FTE and 1.0.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm still, like I said, I'm still I agree, but I think 2 hours, but one, if you could find your own, only for continuity's sake with kids. Because then it's an internal sub most likely at that point, which is something they're familiar with already. for
I
the
think
most
it is
part.
at 2 hours too.
What's that?
I think it is at 2 hours too.
What's
If
that?
you do
An
one or two,
internal.
one
Oh,
or
that-
two,
that's
it will
true.
always be
But
internal.
that'll be, yeah, because you have 2 different people, I'm thinking, who would have 2 hours off in a row?
Right.
But yeah, you could find, you could also find 2 people.
You're kind of thinking 2 hours.
I would be just fine with 2 hours. I don't know if I
Sandy?
would be fine with 1.
What do you think?
I don't know, I kind of go back to what I just said and getting that teacher back in the classroom instead of making them miss 2 class periods. If they can come back in one, let them. I don't know.
I don't have a problem with the 1 hour as long as I'm sure that if it's covered internally, that the employee that is leaving for that hour is using one of their benefits. I mean, when I worked at UW La Crosse, we had a faculty member, and this is a long time ago.
But he was my weight training coach.
Yeah. Back in the day when you had a quadruple bypass, you were in the hospital for a couple of weeks and then off for 6 months. He had somebody cover his classes and he never took 1 day sick leave for that whole entire time. And I
Well, they
don't,
always put it in, is that what you mean? Like,
Yes.
Yeah,
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 they
they
have to-
always
have
put
to-
it in,
have to be
always put
documented.
it in,
that
yes.
they have to use some type of,
Right,
benefit.
Yeah.
because it has to reflect, I have to turn in these sheets to Erin, And she always compares, if one person is putting in for an hour, one person is taking out for an hour, it always has to compare.
She double
And if there's-
counts it.
Right, and so if there's ever a discrepancy, she'll send it to me and she'll say, okay, so either somebody didn't put in or somebody didn't take out. So, that works.
Okay.
The 2 hours makes more sense to me, not working in the building.
Yeah, and you pretty much seem to,
Well, I'd go down to the 1 hour if it's